if you make it to the last word, it won't just be my story anymore. I know how that sounds melodramatic, like the start of some cheap horror podcast, but I'm not here to entertain you. I'm here because I don't know how else to get rid of this thing. This weight, this presence that hasn't stopped following me since that night. And maybe, just maybe, if I hand the story off to you, it'll loosen its grip on me. That's the only reason I'm telling you this at all. You think you're safe right now? Sitting in your room, headphones in, maybe scrolling while my voice plays in the background? That false sense of comfort is exactly what it feeds on. You believe there is a barrier between you and me, between my story and your life, but that's the first lie. You've already let it in because the moment you hear its name, the moment you let curiosity pull you closer, it knows you. I should stop, should slam my laptop shut, delete this file, pretend none of it ever happened. It's what anyone with sense would do. But sense left me the night I made the stupidest decision of my life. I took a shortcut through the woods. That's all it was supposed to be. 5 fewer minutes on a walk home. That's it. Normal night, cool air, quiet streets. Nothing special, nothing dangerous. Just the kind of harmless, everyday choice you don't think twice about. And yet here I am. And here you are. It's funny, in a sick way, how horror doesn't announce itself with thunderclaps or lightning bolts. It sneaks in quietly, hiding in the folds of the ordinary. One moment I was kicking pebbles on the sidewalk, half listening to some true crime podcast through cheap earbuds. The next I was standing at the edge of that path, staring into a patch of trees that should have just been trees. I can't tell you everything, not yet. You wouldn't believe me. And honestly, if I blurted it all out right now, you might close this and walk away before it has the chance to work on you. But that's the problem, isn't it? You won't walk away. Curiosity has its claws in you already. You want to know what I saw, what I heard, what I can't unsee every time I close my eyes. It's how it gets you one breadcrumb at a time. And don't kid yourself. Think you'd make better choices than I did? Think you'd keep walking? Stick to the streetlights. Ignore the little voice in your head whispering, "Come on, it's faster, it's fine." No, you'd do exactly what I did. We all do. That's why you're still listening. I wish I could tell you this was just another creepypasta, summer no-sleep fan fiction dressed up to sound real. I wish I could tell you I was making it all up for likes and views. But I've seen the aftermath. I've read the names on missing persons reports. I've seen the trees shift, seen shapes in the branches that aren't supposed to move on their own. And I know what it does to people who try to speak about it. There's a reason I'm being careful. There are details I can't spell out, not until I'm sure you're ready. Not until I've dragged you far enough and that walking away isn't an option anymore. You'll understand. Soon, for now, I just need you to remember this. Every choice we make looks small until you zoom out and see where it leads. Mine was deciding to shave a few minutes off a walk home. Yours was pressing play. That night didn't start out as a nightmare. Start out as just another evening, another tired walk after a long day. Nothing unusual, nothing ominous. But somewhere between the hum of streetlights and the crunch of gravel under my sneakers, something shifted. I didn't notice it right away. And that's the worst part. By the time you realize you've stepped into its territory, it's already too late. Because everything began with a single mistake. Taking that shortcut through the woods. It was supposed to be one of those nights where nothing happens. You know, the kind drag yourself home after work, earbuds in, brain switched off, half scrolling your phone while your feet go on autopilot. That was me. Overtime shift, sore legs, stomach growling, and the only thing I could think about was reheating leftovers and collapsing on the couch. Nothing sinister, just boring, ordinary life. I wasn't even paying attention to the street at first. My friend had blown up our group chat with dumb memes. I kept laughing to myself, looking like an idiot grinning at my phone while nearly tripping over cracks in the sidewalk. I had one earbud in, half listening to some podcast I'd forgotten to finish earlier. Half tapping replies like, "Bro, you're not funny. Stop spamming." That was my reality, comfortably boring, comfortably predictable. My usual route was safe. Well-lit sidewalks, the occasional car humming past, a gas station clerk sweeping the lot, the kind of suburban night where danger feels like something that only happens to other people, a news headline, horror story, never you. I could practically walk that way blindfolded. And maybe I should have, because the moment I glanced at that other path, a so-called shortcut, I knew what my lazy brain was already scheming. Save 5 minutes, shave a block or two, be home faster. Brilliant idea, right? Save 5 minutes, maybe save your life. If only I thought of it like that. It didn't even look bad. That's what gets me. If you're picturing some horror movie forest with clawing branches and fog, forget it. At first glance, it was just a strip of trees, a trail packed down by years of dog walkers and kids cutting through on their bikes. Nothing scary. It's just darker than the main road, quieter, ordinary. But ordinary can rot if you stare long enough. I should have noticed the first sign, but I didn't. The way the streetlight didn't quite reach the entrance. The way the breeze seemed to cut off, like the air inside the trees was different somehow. The way my screen glitched for half a second, the group chat freezing mid-scroll. It's just tiny things, easy to brush off. And I did, because that's what you do, isn't it? You rationalize. I told myself I was tired. Told myself I was imagining it. Told myself it was fine. And then, before I'd even realized what I was doing, my sneakers were crunching onto the dirt, leaving the glow of the sidewalk behind. At first it was almost peaceful. Quieter, sure, but in a way that felt refreshing. No buzzing neon lights, no cars hissing by, no fluorescent hum from gas stations. Just me, the path, and the muffled rhythm of music in one ear. For a few seconds, I actually thought I'd made the right call. But peace has edges. The deeper I stepped in, the more I felt it sharpening. The quiet wasn't just quiet, it was too quiet. No crickets, no rustle of leaves, no far-off dog barking, just stillness like the world was holding its breath. That was the moment the hairs on the back of my neck rose. I should have turned around then. I should have trusted that prickle of warning. But I didn't, and that's when everything started to change. The first steps into that path felt like stepping through a curtain. I don't mean in some poetic sense, I mean it literally felt different. Like the air pressed heavier on my skin, like I had walked into a space that wasn't built for me. I pulled my hoodie tighter and told myself it was just the sudden shift from pavement to dirt. That's the logical answer, right? You leave behind the hum of traffic and streetlights, and suddenly you notice things you'd normally tune out. But deep down, I knew better. The silence wasn't natural. It was arranged. Still, I kept walking. Because that's what idiots like me do when the universe gives us a dozen red flags. We shrug and keep moving forward. My phone buzzed in my hand. Another meme from the group chat. I thumbed a reply, just to prove to myself that everything was normal, that nothing had changed. Still alive? Losers? I hit send, but the little delivered checkmark never appeared. The signal bar had dropped to nothing. I stopped, tilted my phone, squinted at it like that ever helps. Out of habit, I even raised it above my head, waving it around like a moron trying to fish for Wi-Fi in the middle of the woods. Nothing. Just a frozen screen and a creeping awareness that maybe, just maybe, I should have turned back. I didn't. The dirt path was narrow, roots knuckling up through the soil, shadows tangled between trees. My sneakers made the only sound, crunch, scrape, crunch. Too loud. Way too loud against all that silence. I pulled out my earbud, expecting to hear at least something. Wind, insects, distant cars, anything. There was nothing. It hit me then that I'd never actually heard silence like that before. Absolute silence. No background noise, no filler, no hum of the world. Just void. And in that void, every sound I made seemed magnified. My breath rasped like sandpaper. My footsteps sounded like gunshots. The soft zip of my hoodie was deafening. I laughed nervously under my breath, just to see what it sounded like, and it sounded wrong. Hollow, as if the trees swallowed it whole. That was when I noticed the shadows. At first, they were exactly where they should be, long and sharp, under the weak slice of moonlight cutting through the branches. But then one of them didn't move with me. I froze, took a step back. My shadow stretched with me. But that other one, it stayed perfectly still. My mouth went dry. I blinked hard, rubbed my eyes, told myself it was just a trick. Shadows overlap, shift, blur, nothing supernatural about it. But deep inside, I already knew that was the first real crack in the night. I told myself I was fine. I told myself to keep walking. I even said it out loud, whispering, "Just keep moving. Don't be stupid." Because silence is worse when you fight it. You start craving any noise, even your own voice, just so the world feels less empty. And then, something answered. Not words, not even a sound I could clearly describe. It's just a faint rhythm, like branches knocking together. Except the trees weren't moving. The air was dead still. And yet, knock, knock, knock. I turned in a slow circle, phone gripped like it could save me. The screen stayed frozen. Group chat stuck mid-message. Behind me, the entrance to the path already looked farther away than it should have. Like the trees had swallowed the opening hole. That was the first time my chest tightened with panic. I should have run. God, I should have. But I told myself it was nothing. Just nerves. Just exhaustion. Because if I admitted it was something else, I'd have to face the truth. I wasn't alone. I shoved my phone back in my pocket and walked faster, each step echoing louder than the last. And that's when I heard it, my name, whispered soft, carried on no wind at all. I stopped breathing. I didn't tell you before, but that was the exact moment I knew something in those woods had noticed me. It happened faster than I can put into words, though at the time every second stretched thin, like the world itself was teasing me. I'd been walking maybe 10 minutes down that path, head down, music low enough to keep me company, but not so loud I couldn't to hear the world outside. That's when it happened. Sharp, clean, unmistakable. A snap. Not just any snap. The kind that cuts through silence with surgical precision. A branch breaking under weight. Heavy weight. I froze mid-step. The sound wasn't behind me, where it might have been a stray animal, but off to the side deep in the tree line. Told myself it was nothing, just the natural sounds of nature. But nature doesn't wait for you to listen. It doesn't. Break its silence at the exact moment you most aware of being alone. I slid one headphone off my ear and held my breath. At first nothing, then laughter faint, distant, like someone trying not to laugh but failing, a low bubbling snicker riding the air. I spun around, scanning the shadows, but the path was empty. The sound wasn't behind me, wasn't in front of me. It was around me. My skin crawled. I wanted to say it was kids, maybe some group cutting through the woods too, but that laugh had no warmth in it. It wasn't human in the way human laughter should be. I should have left then, turned back, run home, pretended it never happened. But denial is a powerful drug. I told myself stories. Maybe it was a fox, maybe a drunk, maybe echoes bouncing off the trees. Anything but what I already knew. Something was wrong. I forced my legs forward. That's when I heard it. My name, whispered, clear as day. It came from behind me, low and deliberate, the way a friend might call out if they didn't want to startle you. I turned so fast I nearly lost my footing, scanning the dark. Hello? My voice cracked more than I wanted it to. Nothing. No one. My heart hammered. I hadn't told anyone I was taking this path. No one knew. Tried to convince myself I'd misheard. That maybe my playlist had glitched and one of those background vocal tracks lined up just right. That's all. A coincidence. But then it spoke again. This time from ahead of me. Same word. Same voice. My name. It wasn't echoing. Wasn't distorted. It was exact. And here's the part I can't get out of my head. The part that makes my stomach turn even now. It wasn't just my name. It was my voice. Perfectly mimicked. I wish I could describe its face. The thing that was moving between the trees when I finally caught a glimpse. But I can't. Not because I'm holding back, but because even then, I couldn't focus on it. Like my eyes refused to land on it, sliding off as if it didn't belong in the space it occupied. Shape that was too dark, too shifting. A shadow moving against the direction of the light. That's when panic clawed its way up my throat. I forced myself to keep walking, faster now, like momentum itself could save me. Every step felt heavier, like the path was stretching longer than it should. I told myself, don't run. Don't give it reason. The rational part of me was at war with the screaming part. I shoved my headphones back over both ears and cranked the volume. Desperate for the noise, for anything to drown out the silence pressing in on me. But even through the music, I swear I heard it again. My voice, calling me deeper into the woods. Against every ounce of common sense, I obeyed. The deeper I went, the more the woods stopped feeling like woods. At first, I tried to ground myself in what I knew. Trees, dirt, the crunch of leaves underfoot, ordinary things. I told myself that if I just kept walking straight, I'd pop out the other side near the road. That's what shortcuts do, right? They end. But these trees didn't behave like normal trees. The path seemed to curl back on itself. Though I never once turned, branches leaned overhead like ribs closing in, and no matter how far I walked, I kept passing the same crooked trunk with its bark stripped raw. I even marked it with a stone, just to be sure. 10 minutes later, there it was. Again, my stone resting neatly at its roots, like the woods were mocking me. It wasn't just the space. Time bent too. My phone told me it was 10:43, then 10:47, then 10:43 again. At one point, it blinked 10:44 for what felt like half an hour. My battery ticked down in jolts, 74%, then 68%, then back up to 70. The numbers didn't make sense. Nothing did. That's when the rules started to surface, not spoken, but impressed on me like the woods wanted me to know how their game was played, the first and loudest. Don't answer when it calls your name. I don't know how I knew it. Maybe instinct. Maybe some leftover echo from all the people who had wandered here before me, leaving behind warnings stitched into the soil. I kept hearing my voice, not just any voice, crooning from the trees. It was patient, mocking. Sometimes it whispered soft and sweet, like a parent luring a child. Other times it snapped, sharp as broken glass. "Come here." Each time my tongue itched to respond, to prove I wasn't afraid. But that's the trick, isn't it? Answer, and you're theirs. And listen, I'm not the first to step foot here. I've learned enough since that night to tell you some people never made it back. It's not an exaggeration. They just vanished into these woods, leaving behind rumors and scraps of things. If you think I'm being dramatic, remember this: most stories don't survive because there's no one left to tell them. I found proof. It was half buried in the dirt, just off the path, glinting under the weak light of my phone. At first I thought it was a crumpled plastic bag, some litter left by kids. But when I knelt down and brushed away the soil, my stomach turned to stone. Shoe, not old enough to be forgotten, not new enough to belong to someone still close by. The fabric was frayed, the sole torn, but what froze me wasn't the shoe itself, it was the size. Small, too small. A child's, and beside it, deeper, under the dirt, something else caught the edge of my flashlight. Black glass. I pulled harder and a phone slipped free. The screen was spider-webbed with cracks, caked in mud. But it buzzed faintly when I pressed the button, as if clinging to one last charge. For a second it flickered alive, just long enough for me to see the lock screen. A picture. A girl, no older than 12, grinning into the camera. Then it died in my hand. I dropped it like it burned me. That was when the laughter started again. Closer now. And the voice, my voice called from the dark, soft and coaxing. "Found something you like?" I didn't answer. Couldn't? I shoved the shoe back into the dirt and stumbled forward, heart battering my ribs. And as the trees closed tighter, I realized this wasn't a shortcut anymore. It was a labyrinth, a trap. And I was walking straight into its center. That's when I realized I wasn't the first. I wish I could tell you the woods were empty, that I was just imagining things, that all the voices and the looping paths were just stress and exhaustion. But there's a difference between hallucination and evidence in what I found next. It made everything real. At first it was little things. Scarf snagged high in a tree branch. Faded pink with tassels torn. A water bottle lying sideways in the dirt, still capped but half filled with cloudy liquid. I told myself people lost things all the time, but when I picked it up, the plastic crackled brittle, like it had been sitting there for years. And then I saw the carvings. The first tree had just a single mark, a jagged spiral etched deep into the bark. I thought it was graffiti kids messing around, but then I passed another and another. The spirals multiplied, but they weren't all spirals. Some were triangles, intersecting circles, others a kind of crooked star. Symbols that looked ancient, deliberate. They didn't feel like art, they felt like instructions, warnings. I stopped counting after 12. You ever scroll late at night and stumble across one of those threads you regret reading? You know the ones. The ones unexplained disappearances in national parks, or staircases in the woods, that everyone swears you should never climb. That's what it reminded me of. Those posts that sound like jokes until you're alone in the dark and can't stop thinking about them. This was the same energy. And maybe you're thinking, why didn't you just leave? Believe me, I wanted to. But by then, the path behind me looked just as alien as the one ahead. I turned around 3 times, and each time the trees had shifted, spirals staring at me like eyes. I couldn't tell forward from back anymore, so I did the only thing that made sense. I kept walking. That's when I found the backpack. It was slumped against a tree, the zipper torn halfway down. At first I thought it was a hiker's bag, maybe someone who dropped it and never came back. But when I tugged it open, the contents froze my blood. Inside were notebooks, 4 of them, water-stained but intact. The covers were black, the pages cramped with frantic handwriting. The first page I opened read, "Don't answer if it calls your name. Don't follow the lights. Don't trust the mirrors." I flipped faster, heart pounding. Dozens of entries, dates, scattered maps, of trails that looked almost like mine. The pages were just spirals repeating over and over again. The handwriting deteriorated as the notebooks went on, words slanting, letters jagged. The last page simply read, "It knows you're reading this." I slammed the notebook shut and stuffed it back into the bag. The air felt heavier after that, like the woods had noticed me. And maybe they had. Maybe these woods aren't just trees and dirt, they're something alive. Watching, cataloging, collecting. And here's the part that still claws at me. The symbols, the warnings, the journals. They weren't random. They lined up with things I'd read before. Late-night rabbit holes I thought were fiction. The missing hikers, the staircases, the faceless figure in the tree line. It was all connected. I wish I could explain how, but I don't think I'm allowed to, not yet. Because the moment I stuffed that backpack shut, the forest decided it was time to stop hinting. It was time to show me what I was really dealing with. It whispered my name, but in my dead brother's voice. That's when denial shattered. All the rational explanations I'd been clinging to, echoes, exhaustion, tricks of the light, they dissolved like wet paper, because I knew that voice. I hadn't heard it in years, but it was burned into me, the way only grief brands itself on your memory. And hearing it now, dripping from the trees, felt like being gutted. I froze. My body wanted to run, but my mind locked up, desperate to believe there was still some explanation. Maybe I'd misheard. Maybe I was imagining it. But then it spoke again, closer this time, syllables bending in ways that didn't belong to human mouths. "Come on, it's safe. Follow me." The cadence was all wrong. Like a record warped in the heat, my brother's voice unraveling at the edges. I forced myself forward, one shaky step, then another. The spirals carved into the trees seemed to lean toward me, pointing deeper into the dark. I tried not to look too long at any of them, afraid they'd start to move. Then the laughter came, not mine this time, my brother's. A chorus of voices rising and falling in jagged harmony, as though the woods themselves were cracking jokes only they understood. And then I saw it. Or rather, I saw enough. Between the trees, a figure slouched into view. Too tall, but too narrow, its limbs twitching like they didn't know how to bend properly. Its surface skin, or maybe shadow shifted constantly, melting between forms. For an instant, it wore the face of my brother, smiling wide. Then it blinked and the smile stretched into my own mouth, speaking words I hadn't said. "Don't be afraid." I won't describe its face in detail, not because I don't remember, but because I do, too clearly. And if I give you every detail, if I let you build it perfectly in your head, you might never get it out again. The thing stepped closer, its feet not so much touching the ground as sinking into it. Every shadow in the woods seemed to tilt toward it, sucked in by its gravity. The temperature dropped. Breath came out in ragged white clouds. Then it started using other voices. My mother's, my best friend's, my old boss's. Phrases ripped from memory, twisted just enough to scrape my nerves raw. "Dinner's ready. You're late again. Don't tell anyone what you saw." Each one cracked me open in a new place, like it was rifling through me, picking out the most vulnerable strings to pluck, and then it ran. Or, no, that's not right. It moved. One moment it was 20 feet away, the next it was almost on top of me, its limbs jerking and fast forward while the rest of the world lagged behind. I bolted, heart hammering so hard I thought my ribs might splinter. The woods blurred into a smear of bark and shadow. Every few steps I heard it behind me, sometimes ahead, sometimes whispering directly in my ear. I refused to look back. Looking back meant seeing it too clearly, and I knew if I saw too much, I'd never look away again. Branches clawed at my arms and face, thorns tearing my jacket. But I didn't stop. My lungs were on fire, my legs like wet sandbags. But the terror pushed me harder than adrenaline ever could. At one point, something brushed my shoulder, cold, wet, and too soft. I screamed and lurched sideways, stumbling over roots, tumbling down a small embankment. Mud filled my mouth, my nose. I scrambled up just in time to hear it call again. In my brother's voice, louder now, closer, "Don't leave me. Please, don't leave me again." That nearly broke me, nearly made me turn. But then light. Faint at first, like a match struck in the dark. Then brighter, widening into a pale glow filtering through the trees. I hurled myself toward it, praying it wasn't another trick, another loop in the labyrinth. The thing howled behind me, a noise that wasn't quite animal and wasn't quite human, but something sharp enough to shear the air. My ears rang, my head felt split in two, and then I burst into the clearing. The glow washed over me, moonlight, soft and steady, spilling across open space. For the first time in what felt like hours, the trees backed away, giving me room to breathe. I collapsed to my knees, gasping, dirt caked on my tongue, heart ricocheting out of rhythm. I didn't dare look back. Not yet, not with the memory of that shifting face still seared into my skull. But I could feel it, just beyond the tree line, watching, waiting. The woods weren't finished with me, not yet. I swear I saw headlights, but they never got closer. First, the clearing felt like salvation. Open space, silvered in moonlight, a break from the suffocating walls of trees. My chest loosened for the first time since I'd entered the shortcut. I even laughed, a raw, broken sound. I thought I'd beaten it. And then I saw them, two bright spots on the far side of the clearing, low to the ground. Headlights. The road had to be just beyond the trees. If I ran now, I could flag someone down, get out, forget this nightmare ever happened. So I ran. The grass tore beneath my shoes, each breath ragged but driven by a new kind of hope. The headlights bobbed, swaying as if from a car easing around a bend. But no matter how hard I pushed, no matter how much the clearing blurred around me, they didn't get closer. They just hovered, always the same distance away. I slowed, then stopped, my heart hammering for a different reason now. When I blinked, the lights flickered not. Headlights anymore, but lanterns. Then eyes. Wide, round, unblinking. And they blinked. I stumbled backward, nearly falling, and the whole clearing seemed to shift with me. The grass grew taller, whispering in a language I almost understood. The moonlight paled, then brightened, then swung like a spotlight. My stomach turned. That was when I knew this wasn't an escape. It was a stage, a trap. I almost didn't include this part of the story. I thought about cutting it, leaving it buried with the rest of the details that claw at me when I try to sleep. But you need to know, because if you ever see those lights yourself, you'll recognize the lie. And maybe, just maybe, you'll turn back before it's too late. I circled the clearing, trying to find an edge that looked real. Every direction promised something different. Headlights, lanterns, a gap in the trees, a faint trail. Each time I chose one, I ended up right back where I'd started, staring at the same mocking glow. That's when the voices started again. This time they didn't call my name, they pleaded. Chorus of strangers, sobbing, begging for help. Some sounded young, others brittle with age. Each one seemed to come from the edge of the clearing I hadn't tried yet, and for a split second I almost believed them. But then I remembered the rules scratched into that notebook. Don't answer. If it calls your name, don't follow the lights. Don't trust the mirrors. So I sat in the grass, shaking, teeth clenched so hard I thought they'd crack, and whispered to myself over and over, it's not real, it's not real, it's not real. But the clearing didn't care. The clearing bent time the way a child bends wire, twisting until nothing made sense anymore. I don't know if I sat there for minutes or hours. My phone said 10:44 the whole time. Finally, when the silence grew heavy enough to crush me flat, I understood the truth. There was no easy exit. No headlights, no road, no car, waiting to whisk me away. Only the woods. Only the thing inside them. And me. I thought I made it out. God, I was so wrong. It happened fast. The way nightmares often end, not with resolution, but with the kind of jagged cut that leaves you gasping awake. One moment I was circling that cursed clearing, trapped in its mocking loop of false lights, and the next I caught sight of something new. A break. A narrow slit in the trees I hadn't noticed before, just wide enough for me to squeeze through. No lights, no voices, just darkness. And somehow that made it feel real. I didn't think, I just ran. Branches raked my arms as I forced my way forward. The ground sloped hard beneath me, my shoes skidding on wet leaves, but I didn't care. All I could see was the faint silver ribbon of pavement glinting ahead. The road. The real road. I burst out of the tree line. So suddenly I almost screamed in relief. Asphalt stretched in both directions, empty but solid, humming faintly with the memory of cars. Streetlights glowed in the distance. Civilization. Safety. For a long moment, I just stood there, bent double, hands on my knees, lungs clawing for air. I'd done it. Against all odds, I'd survived. But then, the silence, it followed me. Normally, even at night, the road would hum with the distant whoosh of cars, the buzz of insects, the faint rustle of wind through grass. But here, everything was dead still. The world looked right, but it sounded wrong. I told myself I was imagining it, and I was in shock. I staggered toward the lights of town, forcing one foot in front of the other, and that's when I felt it. A weight. Not on me, but around me. It's the same oppressive pressure from the woods, clinging to my skin like smoke. The shadows pooled a little too thick under the street lamps. My own footsteps echoed half a beat late, like something was walking just behind me, mimicking. I spun around more than once, but the road was empty. Always empty. I made it home somehow. My apartment door shut with a final click, and I leaned against it, laughing, sobbing, every emotion crashing through me at once. I checked the locks twice, 3 times. Then I showered until the water ran cold, scrubbing dirt and blood from my arms. For a few hours, I almost convinced myself I was safe, but the signs were there. The spirals, faint but visible, scratched into the condensation on my bathroom mirror. My phone blinking 10:44. Even though the sky outside was starting to pale, and the voice just once soft enough, I could via mistaken it for a dream whispering my name from the corner of my bedroom. I told myself I'd escaped, that whatever lived in those woods was stuck there, chained to its territory. But now I know better. It followed me. It always follows. And by listening to this, by letting my words burrow into your head, it's following you too. 'Cause that's the truth about curses. They're not confined to places. They live in stories, in warnings, in the act of passing them on. I made it out of the woods, but the woods didn't let go. They never will. You remember how I started this story? How I said if you're hearing it, then maybe it's already too late? I wasn't exaggerating. The thing doesn't just live in the woods. It's what I thought at first, that it was bound to that place, trapped like a spider in its own web. But I've come to understand something worse. It isn't the woods that holds it. It's the telling, the remembering, the sharing. By listening to me, by letting my voice crawl into your head, you've given it a path. That's how it moves through stories, through warnings that come dressed like lifelines, but really just spread the infection further. I know how this sounds. Paranoid. Insane. Believe me, I used to laugh at people who thought curses could spread like chain letters. Pass this on or you'll die. Stupid, right? And yet, here we are, because I can feel it even now, in the silence between words. In the way my reflection lags a half second behind when I look in the mirror, in the itch at the base of my skull, every time I sit in the dark too long. And if you're paying attention, you'll feel it soon too. Maybe it's already happening. Maybe you've already noticed the quiet. Look around your room right now. Does it feel stiller than usual? Do the shadows in the corner look a little thicker than they should? Check your window. If you see the trees moving, it's already too late. I'm not saying this to scare you. I'm saying it because I don't want to be the only one who knows. If anyone else has seen it, really seen it, leave a comment. Describe what you experienced. Maybe together we can piece together its rules. Maybe we can find a way to stop it. Or maybe we're just helping it spread. That's the part I can't figure out. All I know is, I wasn't the first to tell this story, and I won't be the last. I heard whispers before I ever set foot in those woods, strange. Threads on forgotten forums, late-night calls from voices that swore they saw the same impossible things. I ignored them. I thought they were just stories. Now I've added mine to the pile. The cycle repeats. The woods grow even where no trees stand. And you're part of it now. So don't say I didn't warn you.